You're listening to the WBT Podcast with Michael Lodge. Listen to all of our podcasts at www.wbtpod.com. Stay informed. Let's get started.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518 or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.
And thank you for calling. I started off wrong immediately. Sorry about that. But welcome to the WBT, and this is Michael Lodge. Well, every once in a while I make mistakes, okay? I am not a professional at this. What would you call it? I'm just not a professional at standing before the microphone and talking. Some people are really good at it. You know, they can talk and they can make it sound as if they are smart on everything. I struggle. You know, every Tuesday I come on and I do a Political Tuesday. And the reason why I do that is because politics does play a part in our financial lives. And whether or not if you're not paying attention to what's happening in politics or what's going on in the United States Capitol or even in your state capitals, you need to do so because what they are deciding and what they're voting on affects you and me. And that is one of the biggest things. But I came across in which I want to talk about today, I came across this really good state fiscal ranking where it lists all of the states and where they stand fiscally, what their fiscal condition is, what the financial condition is. And it's put out by George Mason University. And it's very in detail. But today I'm going to talk about one specific state because it really concerns me. And that is that the state of California ranks 42 in fiscal condition. In other words, out of all of the states, they rate number 42, which means they have trouble. They have problems. And that means that they have a solvency problem. Now, if you and I ran our lives like the state of California did, we would be bankrupt in a matter of moments. Where you have money coming in, but a lot more money going out. And their debt means a lot. You know, if you have debt as an American, debt is the worst thing that you can have on your books. Because that means you owe. And the more you owe and the longer it takes you to pay that off, the more it costs you. I think you understand that philosophy. So let's do a little summary on this, on the state of California, on the base of its solvency. In 5 separate categories, California ranks 42nd among the U.S. states for fiscal health. That's bad. 42nd. With a booming state that we're supposed to have the 5th or 6th largest world economy, our fiscal condition in the state is 42nd of all states. California has between 0.82 and 0.162 times the cash needed to cover short-term obligations, well below the U.S. average. Revenues exceed expenses by 4% with an improving net position of $271 per capita. In the long run, Californians' negative net assets ratio of 0.57 points to the use of debt and large unfunded obligations, long-term liabilities are higher than the national average. Our long-term liabilities in the state of California are higher than the national average at 92% of total assets, or $5,642 per capita. Total unfunded pension liabilities. And this is where the state gets into so much trouble because of the pension liabilities of what they owe people when they retire from the state of California in the government, in the state government retirement system is way out of line. Total unfunded pension liabilities that are guaranteed to be paid are $1,190.84 billion, or 54% of state personal income. That is too much. Too much. So I've mentioned some terms, so let's go over the key terms that I've just talked about. One is cash solvency. This measures whether a state has enough cash to cover its short-term bills, which include accounts payable, vouchers, warrants, and short-term debt. California ranks 45th in their cash solvency. Budget solvency. This measures whether a state can cover its fiscal year spending using current revenues. Did it run a shortfall during the year? California ranks 17th. Long-term solvency measures whether a state has a hedge against large long-term liabilities. Are enough assets available to cushion the state from potential shocks or long-term fiscal risks? California ranks 45th, which means we are not prepared for long-term issues. Service level solvency measures how high taxes, revenues, and spending are when compared to state personal income. Do states have enough fiscal slack? That's the question. Do states have enough fiscal slack? If spending commitments demand more revenues, are states in a good position to increase taxes without harming the economy? Is spending high or low relative to the tax base? California ranks 28th. Trust fund solvency measures how much debt a state has. How large are unfunded pension liabilities and OPEB liabilities compared to the state personal income? California ranks 41st. That is not very good news for Californians. That means that their state is not fiscally responsible. And what is the reason why? It's because no matter how much money is brought in, they're so close to not being able to pay it. The cash solvency ranks 45th. That means that we are poor at managing our cash. They do pretty good on their budgets, but they still rank 17th. This is what Americans or Californians do not understand, is that that California is supposed to be, the fifth or the sixth largest economy in the world, but they cannot manage their own financial affairs in Sacramento. That is a big problem. That is not what Americans pay their taxes for. That is not why that is why Californians should be highly upset with the way that Sacramento is managing the money that they work so hard for. California has the highest taxes: gasoline taxes, personal income taxes, corporate tax rates, environmental taxes, everything else. Everything is the highest than all the rest of the states. Excuse me. So what does that mean? Well, politically, things have got to change. Individuals have got to be put into state government that understand what fiscal responsibility is. That is a problem with Democratic politicians, is that they make all of these promises but take no responsibility for a state that is fiscally, financially bankrupt. And I say bankrupt because they have not managed the cash of Americans, the cash of Californians, well enough. So when you hear Governor Brown say, "Oh, I've got a surplus," no, he does not have a surplus, because let me tell you, on his watch, if you look at the unpaid amount of pension liabilities, or the unfunded pension liability section of government workers, they're sitting at $1.190 billion, ranking at 54% of states' personal income tax. So you have a problem. Many of the state employees, when they get done, they get more than what they were making as an employee of the state. Now, if you look at the normal individual who works in California, some of them do not even have a retirement plan, because businesses, small businesses, just cannot afford it. But the state of California is so fiscally unresponsible that they are putting Californians' lives at risk. Wrong. So when politicians make that argument to you, "Oh, California is very strong. We are the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world." No, they are not. Because they have not managed their state well enough to say that. When you as a state is ranked 42nd in a bad fiscal condition, California has a lot to do to get that back. It's ridiculous. Californians work very hard. Listen, they come into my office in Burbank at the end of each tax season, and we go over their tax services. And people who are making $100,000+ make the comment, "I don't know where my money goes," because they see that they owe $12,000 at the end of the year, and they say, "Where did my money go?" Well, the money went to high rent. It went to bad spending on themselves because they don't know how to make a budget. They're buying fancy cars. They're going into debt. They're charging on their credit cards. They're going back to school and racking up school debt. And then the state is doing the same thing by creating more debt and more expenses. It's a problem with Californians, and also the feds, is that they bring in all this tax money, but they never talk about what expenses can they cut. What programs can they cut that is costing the state so much money? If you listen to Gavin Newsom, he thinks everything's hunky-dory, when the man doesn't even understand probably how to even balance his checkbook. And that is the problem. Democratic politicians do not know how to balance their checkbook. And they keep mounting up debt, and they keep making promises, and they keep doing the stupidest things to the state. And they're ranked 42nd in all of the 50 states. Now, Californians allowed that to happen. They didn't get involved. They didn't pay attention. But what they did is just mosey on with their life, trying to survive in a very costly state. I was looking at apartments in Glendale, California, and I was looking at just a 300 square foot, what do they call it? Where you don't have a bedroom and you don't have anything, a studio apartment. in Glendale, California, was $3,500 for 300 square feet. I did find some for $2,500, but you probably wouldn't want to live there. Can you imagine paying that much money for 300 square feet? 300 square feet in a studio apartment. But Gavin Newsom keeps moseying on and he keeps saying, oh, everything's hunky-dory and we are in good shape. No, the state is not in good shape. You're ranked 42nd because your fiscal and financial condition is very weak. So Californians, I want you to think about this as you're going to the polls and as you're making your decisions on who you're going to vote for. Pay very attention to what the candidates are telling you. Make sure that you understand that they understand what fiscal responsibility is. And I want you to ask that question of every candidate. What are you going to do to reduce the expenses of the state of California? Now, Gavin Newsom wants to raise taxes again. He's made that statement several times. I'm going to raise taxes. But he never says, what can I cut out of state government that is costing the state way too much money? So pay very close attention to the candidates, the Senate, the Assembly, the governorship, the lieutenant governorship. What are they saying about the fiscal condition of California? And how are they going to fix it? That is the question. That is the question. If you have any questions, send me an email at mlodge@lodge-co.com. I'll be more than happy to answer it. If you want a copy of this report, I can send it to you or send you the link. In fact, I'll even put the link in the comments of this podcast. But there you go. 42nd in the worst fiscal condition ranks California. How much lower can the state go? This is Mike Lodge. I'll talk with you very soon. Everybody vote in November, but vote for the individual who's going to do something about the fiscal condition of California. Talk to you very, very soon.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
World of Business and Taxes on WBT.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518 or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.